Okay. If we could call the meeting to order and everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
Miss Martin.
Here.
Mr. McHugh.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Miss Doherty.
Here.
Miss Faticante.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Our first item tonight is a spotlight on excellence. We actually have 2 spotlights tonight. The first one is from the Massachusetts School Building Authority My Ideal School Contest. We have a first grade student at the Riley School, Kyle Alves, who was finished first in that contest and has had some publicity in the Lowell Sun and a nice trip to the State House. I'm going to recognize the superintendent, who I think will introduce Robbie Keefe and Linda McLaughlin from the Riley School, who will then tell us a little bit about Kyle and his project. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you. I wonder if Linda McLaughlin, principal of the Riley School, and Robbie Keefe, assistant principal, could step forward and introduce us to your students' work.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Martin, members of the Lowell School Committee, Dr. Baer, and members of Lowell School Department. Again, thank you so much for inviting us this evening to recognize one of our students for being such a capable student, of which we are so proud. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you our first grader, Kyle Alves, who is one of 15 students to win the first ever statewide contest, Ideal School Contest. Kyle. For those of you who have read the article in the paper, you know that there were about 4,000 entrants, and it's quite a feat to have accomplished what he has done. Kyle depicted in his picture himself and his friend Sean playing basketball in the school gymnasium. And in his essay, he wrote, "My ideal school is a safe place, nice teachers, nice friends, and you'll learn a lot about special people and about things." That says a lot about Kyle in general. We're very fortunate to have Kyle at our school as a student. According to his first grade teacher, there's just a couple of words that she wanted to use to describe Kyle. He's conscientious, he's a hardworking student, and he's a very caring student. Aside from being interested in art, Kyle loves sports, especially basketball and soccer. When I asked him about sports, he said he likes sports because in games, everybody can play in the same way. As you know, he was honored at the State House. He received 3 awards last Friday on May 5th. And also he received a $100 savings bond from Sovereign Bank, and Kyle told us that he plans on putting that away for his college education. So again, it is my pleasure to introduce not only Kyle, but his parents as well. And please give us another round of applause for such a great winner. Kyle Alves. Thank you. I've asked Kyle if he wants to say a few words, but he has declined. Okay. Thank you again.
Where's your picture?
Okay, thank you very much.
Kyle's going to show his photo, his picture.
Oh, okay, we're going to get the picture.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That is so excellent. Your Honor, maybe we can give that to the architects for the next couple of buildings.
Kyle, we're expecting big things from you in the 2nd grade now. Okay, thank you very much. Our next spotlight on excellence concerns the Fitchburg State College COSTEP program. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, I'd like to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent Duggan.
I am very pleased to present to the committee and to Mr. Mayor the Dean of Education, Elaine Francis, from Fitchburg State College, and the project coordinator, Ann Hogan, again from Fitchburg State College, and they are going to give us a little snippet of what the Co-STEP program is all about and introduce our most recent, soon-to-be, graduates from the program. I want to add that we've had several other classes of Co-STEP paras that have graduated from the program, and currently all graduates from the program are employed as teachers in the Lowell Public Schools. Elaine, would you like to take the stand?
Dean Francis, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak to you tonight about something that is very precious to all of us at Fitchburg State College and in our partnership with the Lowell Public Schools and Middlesex Community College. What we're really here about tonight is to celebrate the wonderful work that the paraprofessionals do in the city of Lowell and in cities across the nation, really. About 10 years ago, one of your very own, Paula Abraham, a teacher in the Lowell Public Schools, had an idea that she brought to Middlesex Community College, and Carol Cowan and her wonderful creative folks jumped right on and said, great idea, and that was to develop a paraprofessional certificate. We recognize that paraprofessionals are out there every day teaching children, providing direct service, providing support, backing up teachers when necessary, being able to handle a number of different kinds of emergencies, and they really didn't have very much preparation for these enormous tasks. And so this certificate program provided them with an 18-credit program that they were able to complete that gave them the background to be more effective in their work. Two things happened as a result of that we didn't necessarily expect. One was that the paraprofessionals were really excited and turned on to higher education and wanted to continue. And the other thing that we didn't really recognize would happen is that they were among our very best students because of the wonderful experience that they have in your schools. And so Middlesex then approached Fitchburg State College about coming to Lowell to provide what we call a career ladder, going from that certificate to an associate's degree through Middlesex, through the bachelor's degree through Fitchburg State College. And this particular program leads to licensure in special education, elementary education, and a background in working with English language learners, which actually also prepares them for that certificate. So it's a threefold program in a sense, and these people are very incredible students and soon-to-be teachers. Actually, on Saturday they graduate. So from here, once we developed that program, we looked for some funding. We got a little bit here and a little bit there, and then we applied for a federal grant from the Office of English Language Affairs that's provided support for these individuals in tuition and books and so on, without which it would be very difficult, as you can imagine, on a paraprofessional salary to go through this kind of a program. So you could say, well, they had it made, right? Incredible amount of work, and they are raising families, and they've been juggling multiple roles, and they are really a credit to the paraprofessionals in the system, to the future teachers of this district, and we now have 32 graduates of the program, and I'm very pleased to introduce to you Ann Hogan, who has been really the rock behind all of this, the project coordinator. Ann is incredibly organized, but also creative, and has opened many gates for folks with a whole myriad of transcripts that they came to us with, and Ann's just, I think, the one that got them all through it, right? So, yeah.
Thank you and good evening. I don't have much more to add other than I feel like I'm sending off my child to kindergarten, although they're probably going to teach kindergarten. As I look down the row, 6-7 years I've been with this group, some of them coming in late 1999. Leanna's saying yes, and I ushered them through their associate degree program at Middlesex, and every semester it was, yes, you can do it, one class at a time. And they did it, and here they sit, very proud, and we're very proud of them. And I'd like them to stand and introduce themselves to you, where they've done their practicum this year and the license they will be earning in just a couple months as soon as we push that paper, but they will all be standing on the stage Saturday in Fitchburg when we have our commencement.
My name is Leanne Sexton. I have earned my degrees in special education, minor disabilities, pre-K through 8, and another in elementary education, grades 1 through 6. I'm presently doing my student teaching. I have been doing it at the middle school here in Lowell. It's been a very rewarding experience, and I did start in 1999. It's been a long haul. It's been worth every step of the way, and without these two ladies here and our commitment, this would not have happened, and we are extremely grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
My name is Helene Sawyer, and I work at the Pine Arts Magnet School in 2 first-grade classrooms with 2 wonderful supervisors that have well over 20 years' experience. I'd like to mention their names, Deborah Dupree and Jean Murphy. I'm also earning my degree in special ed moderate disabilities, pre-K through 8 and elementary 1 through 6, and I appreciate this opportunity. Otherwise, I probably, wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably be a paraprofessional, which is good, but I'd like to have my own classroom someday. Thank you very much, and I'm nervous.
Hello, my name is Julie DeMatteis. I had the opportunity this year to student teach at McAuliffe School, and I absolutely had the most wonderful experience. The administrators of the school were very welcoming to me, as I was very nervous, and I worked with 2 wonderful teachers, Jessica Browning and Marianne Dunleavy. I will be certified in special education, moderate disabilities, pre-K through 8, and elementary ed 1 through 6. And I am so looking forward to getting a job as a teacher. And I have to thank my ladies, my aunt, and my elect, because I am so excited. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Patricia Marassi. I am a student teaching at the Shaughnessy School this year, which has been like a dream come true. It has just been wonderful working with Nancy Chicamian as a classroom teacher and Kim Forsythe as a special education teacher. And it's full inclusion, which is what I'm very interested in doing. I will be licensed in special education moderate needs, pre-K to 8, and elementary ed 1 through 6. And also, I couldn't have done it either without Ian and Elaine. Definitely. Thank you.
My name is Patty Spence-Hobbs. I currently work at the American School in the special ed adjustment classroom, which is 4th grade. I work with 2 wonderful teachers, one very new to the system. Her name is Dagny Runyon, and with me on the staff. And also, I work in an inclusive work with classroom of 3 to 7. I'm also going to be certified to teach special ed learner disabilities, pre-K through 8, and elementary ed 1 through 6. And I am too very grateful for Anne and Elaine. I mean, it's been a dream come true for me, not knowing whether I wanted to teach or not, but really loving the profession and being grateful for the chance to teach the kids with me.
If I could interrupt, if we could have the remaining folks come to the microphone, because there are people interested in this in our viewing audience, and they can't follow that on the camera here. So sorry to make you the first one, but there's nothing to be nervous about. You'll be far less nervous than we would be in front of a classroom. So
good evening. My name is Sharon Byrne, and I have had the pleasure of teaching full-time at Greater Lowell Tech this year as my practicum. I will be earning a degree in special eds, moderate disability, 5 through 8. And I am the only one out of this group that has not had the pleasure of working in the Lowell public school system. But I would also like to thank these ladies for the opportunities that they have given us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Bazdanis, and I've had the pleasure of working at Lowell High School this year and doing my practicum in student teaching in a classroom with students with pervasive developmental disorder. I will be getting my license in severe disabilities, grades 5 through 12. And thank you guys for everything, and I just can't wait to be part of the Lowell school system.
Hi, I'm Sharon Trombley, and I'm pretty sure this is my 15 minutes of fame. So I just wanted to say that I started as a parent volunteer at the Malloy. Do you remember St. Amand, Miss St. Amand? She recruited me. When my kids moved to the wing, Mr. Flynn said, "You've got to be my parent liaison." I said, "Okay." So then when my kids went on, I did that for 5 years, someone said, "You need to be a paraprofessional." I said, "Okay." And then they said, "You could be a teacher." And I went, "Oh, I don't know. And here I am, and I'm thrilled. I've worked with ED-BD, life skills, elementary. The last 3 years I was at the Sullivan. I was the 8th grade resource paraprofessional. And this year I did my student teaching at the Robinson. So it's been really wonderful. Thank you.
And I'd just like well, Elaine would like to say a couple things, but in this group we have honors students who will be graduating with honors. We have Kappa Delta Pi inductees here. But I also would like to mention that Patty Ann Spence Cox was nominated and awarded the Goldman Award from Fitchburg State College, and that is the award given to one very special education student on the campus, this graduating class, for their excellence in education, performance, leadership, and community service. Patty Ann? Thank you.
Well, in closing, I just want to say that this really couldn't have been done without such a superb partnership that in 34 years, I have to say this has been the highlight of my career. And that has to do with working with people such as you have here in Lowell, like Carla and Sue Duggan and Joan Franco and Joyce Tapper-Benham, who, along with Middlesex Community College and my colleagues at Fitchburg, have always said have never said, we can't do that. It's always been, how can we do that? We've opened so many pathways, and it's something we hope to continue to build upon. We'll be back. We don't have any more money right now, but we'll be back. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present this wonderful program.
Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. I would like to just congratulate everybody for making it through the program, and I use that because it is a great program. I remember sitting in these chambers and having a discussion about this program and talking about promoting from within. Why don't we recruit the best that we have and give them the opportunity to move up into our school system, not only from paraprofessionals up to teachers, but from teachers to administrators, because I think it is important you understand the system, you've been with the children, and it's an easier transition. So we don't always need to go out and recruit from somewhere else. So this is something a number of years ago, I know a few of my colleagues were here when we had this discussion to support this, and I every year I'm just so happy to see people like yourselves come forward and made it through and find it rewarding, and hopefully we'll be seeing you for a number of years with our students, and that'll be the true reward that you put all the effort in. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Vaticanti.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have to echo Mr. McHugh's words, because I remember sitting here and saying to my colleagues, who better than to hire people who already know all about our school system, people who've worked here day to day, people who know the ups, they know the downs, they know our kids, and they've already made a commitment. And now it's an opportunity for us to make a commitment to them. And to my colleagues, sometimes we do things and we don't get to see the results of what we do. It's not so tangible, but tonight it really is. We took a vote, we made a commitment, and tonight we see the tangible effort. These people sitting here, our commitment to bringing together a group of people from within who are going to hopefully now make a very long-term commitment to the Lowell Public Schools. And it is a good program, and I want to thank the coordinators, because without their efforts, we could not have done that. And it's just very nice for us to sit here and see the result of something that we actually talked about and did, and to see you all sit here tonight. So congratulations.
Thank you. If I could too, would just like to add, I mean, this is an example of a very innovative program in partnership with Middlesex Community College, who continues to lead the way in so many areas, and Fitchburg State College. And I'm delighted to see this professional development occurring within our system. I should point out, I've known Sharon Trombley since we were in grammar school together. And she walked into my office tonight and said, boy, you've come a long way since I've seen you last. And I said back to her, no, I think you've come a long way. And I mean that about each and every one of you, to persevere and work hard as you did to achieve this with all the work obligations and family obligations that you have, really is a commitment of excellence on your part, and we're happy to have hardworking folks like yourselves as part of our school system. So we wish you well, and we'll be here to continue to support you along the way. And if you've worked half as hard as you did as teachers, as you did becoming teachers, our system will be very well served. So congratulations to each and every one of you, to the folks at Middlesex and Fitchburg State for making this program a reality. Thank you and congratulations. Okay, we have minutes to approve from the last meeting. I should point out to folks they're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but we certainly don't take offense if you want to move on to more fruitful pursuits. Okay, motion to accept the minutes of the May 3rd meeting by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We should just pause for a minute here while people... Yep.
How about a 5-minute recess? No. 2-minute pause, okay. Seconded by Mr. Leary.
Okay, we'll
Thank
take
you,
a
Mr.
brief
Leary.
recess for 2 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? We'll stand recess for just a short 2 minutes.
Good excuse, yeah, good excuse. Is this all?
Okay, we'll reconvene now. Roll call, please.
Okay. Is everybody back? Okay. 7:29 p.m. Roll call. After? Okay. Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Present. Mr.
Present.
Leary?
Yes. Here,
Miss Martin?
Here.
Mr. McHugh?
Present.
Mayor Martin?
Here.
Miss Doherty?
Present.
Miss Fattacante?
Here.
7 present.
Okay, next item is permission to enter. There are several items. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Martin. Recommend entering into contracts with Kathy M. Nardone, $12,500 to provide music education to preschool children at 12 elementary schools and the Family Literacy Center, funded by Early Childhood Grant. Community Teamwork Incorporated Child Care Search, $845,992 to provide intake and subsidy management for up to 400 children and families who qualify for Community Partnership Child Care subsidies. That also comes out of the Community Partnership Grant. Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, $214,759 to provide behavioral consultation to community-based early childhood programs. Early childhood coming also out of the Community Partnership Grant. Middlesex Community College, $70,200 to provide college courses for the Early Childhood Department and training on the Massachusetts Department of Education Teachers Examination. Again, Community Partnership Grant. Salem State College, $70,200 for the same purpose, grant funded. And the Boston Institute for Arts Therapy Incorporated, $13,650 to provide music therapy services to students with behavioral needs at the Lincoln Lincoln School, and Pawtucket Memorial programs, again, coming out of the early childhood various grants. Then to the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, $24,741 to provide college courses for 25 teachers that will focus on examining the impact of science and technology on the effects of rapid changes in technology, environmental impact, and the importance of natural resources. This is funded by Content Institute grants from the Department of Education. Mark Romanowski, physician, $10,000 to provide physical examinations for candidates for athletic teams at Lowell Public Schools. In Lowell Public Schools, funding will be provided by the school department's FY07 budget, athletic contracted services. Middlesex Community College, $55,000 to support the peer mediation score program at Lowell High School in conjunction with the Office of the Attorney General. This is funding provided by the school department's FY07 budget for special programs and the Office of the Attorney General. Middlesex Community College, $710,500 to continue the bridge program at the David J. McHugh Alternative Middle School, housed at the Riverside School on Woburn Street. Funding provided by the school department FY07 budget. Middlesex Community College, $20,000 to pay tuition for qualified students from Lowell High School who will earn both high school and college credits by taking courses at Middlesex Community College in the dual enrollment program, funded by the school department's FY07 budget. University of Massachusetts at Lowell, $70,000 for the same dual enrollment program at the university, again funded by the FY07 school department budget. Systems Technology Group Incorporated, $10,450 to provide service to the Lunchbox point-of-sale system software for the food services program for 10 schools and the food services office. Funding to be provided by the school department FY07 budget, the food services revolving account. North Reading Linfield Taxi Incorporated, $291,150 to amend the third year of the contract for regular education transportation for students involved in after-school activities and school field trips, funding by various grants. And SP&R Transportation of New Hampshire, $506,808 to amend the third year of the contract for special education transportation for students involved in the special education summer school and after-school programs, again funding by various grants. And then Assistant Superintendent Lang left at your desks one more request. Apologize for not being able to get this to you earlier, but we just learned of the obligation that would of this. Assabet Valley Collaborative Foundation Incorporated, $10,000 to provide transportation for one child placed in a setting in Framingham by the Department of Social Services who's going to school in Lowell. That's a mandate from the Department of Social Services for us to provide this transportation to be funded by the fiscal year 06 School Department Special Education Transportation budget. We had anticipated being able to cost share this and that we were not able to do that. So that's why this is now fully our obligation.
Questions? Ms. Martin?
Actually, no question. I would just like to ask if we could take one item, the Community Teamwork, Inc., and vote on that separately, if that would be
You're on a
possible. Make
motion
that in
to
the form
remove
of a
community
motion.
teamwork from the list and vote on it separately?
Okay, motion by Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. McHugh to consider that item separately. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That matter will be considered separately. Is there a motion to approve the balance of
Motion
these?
to approve the
Mr.
budget, Your Honor.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. McHugh.
Just one, I had one quick question first, and I also would like to pull something separately as well. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent, I see that there's like one large grant here. Did we already get notification of the award, or are these going to be pending the award of the grant? Because I understand some of these are time sensitive for July 1, but if, you know, the way the grants have been going lately, I'm just concerned that we would have enough to fund these, or is there an additional amount that will hold them back?
They're always pending funding. So this only permits us to enter into the contract. We're not obligated to spend the dollars unless we have them.
Okay, so that answers that question. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that we pull out the Mark Romanowski just under the, he is actually my physician, and I think I've done it every year where just under the conflict.
What are you going to get, a free exam?
He's probably not going to charge you less.
So, Your Honor, could you
More.
could you remove two things, Dr. Mark Romanowski and University of Lowell?
Okay.
And we'll vote on that separately, please.
All right, so there is A motion to
CTI.
also remove CTI, Mark
The Mark
Romanowski,
and ULO.
and the University of
Right.
Mass Lowell contracts separately.
Right.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is approved. Mr. Leahy?
No, that was part of the
That was-
motion.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so a motion to approve the remainder of these, except for those that were accepted out by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Faticante.
Yes?
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, motion to approve the contract with Community Teamwork
Motion to approve, Your Honor?
by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Present.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Faticante.
Yes?
6 yeas, 1 present, approved.
Okay. Motion to, actually, the motion is to authorize the entering of these contracts, not to
Yes.
actually approve the contract with the University of Massachusetts Lowell.
Motion to enter?
So moved by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those, roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Present.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Faticante.
Yes?
6 yeas, 1 present, approved.
And finally, motion to approve the permission to enter the agreement with Mark Romanowski by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Faticante. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Present.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Faticante.
Yes?
6 yeas, 1 present, approved.
Okay, the next item, we have one memorial being offered by the committee as a whole for Natalie Iacret, a Lowell Public School student who was tutored at home. Natalie suffered several severe illnesses and recently passed away. As I said, she was too ill to be enrolled in a school, but was very actively tutored at home. If we could rise in a moment of silence and darken chambers in her memory. May she rest in peace. Next item on the agenda is subcommittee reports. The first one is the Lowell High School Subcommittee Report by Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Present at the subcommittee meeting were myself and my colleagues, Ms. Faticante and Mr. Leary. Also present from central office were Dr. Bear, Deputy Superintendent Rorak, Assistant Superintendent Jean Franco, as well as Lowell High School Headmaster William Samaras, Wendy Jack, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Coordinator of Student Support Services Norma Audi, Director of Physical Education Brian Martin, and a parent representative Kathy Dillon, who's a member of the Lowell High School School Site Council. The meeting began at 7:10 p.m. and we had 6 items on the agenda. I'll go through them as quickly as I can. The first one was a parking update. Apparently there had been a number of cars who had been towed from out in front of the high school. There was difficulty getting from the garage to the high school because the side door was locked, and the parents were looking for 3 areas of concern relating to parking at the high school. Mr. Carney, the parking director at the garage, has indicated that the side door would remain open 24 hours a day as of July 1st, which would enable parents who are coming to the high school for evening events to more easily get from the garage to the high school. We're also looking for an ordinance from the city, the law department, relating to parking in front of the high school. This would be after school hours. They'd like to have some signage for perhaps 1 or 2 spots for 10 to 15-minute drop-off and pickup areas in front of the high school, as well as allowing parents to park there during after-school events. In addition to that, Mr. Martin will be looking with Mr. Samaras into a process for validating parking for parents who volunteer at school functions and other special events, as agreed upon with Mr. Carney of the garage. So that's in process. The motion by Ms. Fatacanti, seconded by Mr. Leary, was to recommend that the school committee as a whole accept this report as a report of progress, and we'll be hearing an update on those details as we get that from Mr. Martin on those areas. Do we need to move on that, or should I go to the next agenda item?
Why don't we just take them all,
Okay.
if they're all just reports to accept.
Right, with different things that more information we'll need.
Right.
Okay, the second item on the agenda had to do with academy planning at the high school. This is they're looking at a long-term plan the next few years to provide smaller learning communities by having the students at the high school in clustered groups and get more students tied to different academies. Dr. Jack provided an overview of the status of the academies, and the plan as they're looking at it currently is that we have the freshman academy where all the grade 9 students are, except for the Latin Lyceum students. And towards the end of the 9th grade, those students will then be surveyed to ask them, actually I think the survey's already happened, what academies they're interested in, because part of the plan for doing this clustering is to align academies with specific houses. Right now, we have students randomly assigned to houses, and the academies are a second tier in that. And the thinking is to try to coordinate that alignment so that we have, again, these smaller learning communities. My colleague, Ms. Fatacanti, had some concerns about the concept of the academies being tied to the houses, in particular the idea of limiting options for students. And we discussed this at length at the meeting, and it was decided that we would need more information from the administration about how they were going to encourage students to get into academies, but not restrict students if they didn't feel inclined to a certain academy at this point in time, or if they should change their minds about academies. So that concern is going to be addressed at a later date. We'll have an update on this whole plan. In addition to the discussion about academies and houses, we looked at the grade 10 plan for what the administration is terming linked instruction that would begin in August of 2006, and the idea is to have each 10th grade student be linked with teams of teachers. In other words, you'd have the same English and history teacher pairing off, so those teachers would know those students with a deeper understanding of who those students are and what their concerns and issues might be. And again, with the idea behind it to create smaller learning community for every grade 10 students, which would enable us to have the focus and attention on students, and we'd have less students falling through the cracks. So with those two academy planning pieces in place, the motion by Ms. Fatacanti, seconded by Mr. Leary, is to recommend the school committee as a whole accept it as a report of progress with an update and further information to be provided to the high school subcommittee at a later date. The next item on the agenda was MCAS administration. This was specific to a motion regarding the educational activities for students who are non-test takers. You know, the 10th graders, most 10th graders take the MCAS, but not all of them do. And there had been some concern that what were the other students doing? With the high school as large as it is, you know, everything kind of had to shut down for this testing. And the administration expressed that they've been working to provide meaningful experiences for students who are not taking tests during those days. They have cluster teachers doing a rotation. They're doing presentations in the auditorium with some students who aren't taking tests. Students meet with guidance counselors regarding course selection. Grade 11 and 12 students do planned activities at certain times. It was brought out that we've got kids taking up to 32 days of tests in a year. I mean, it's a lot of testing that's going on. And the scheduling, the adult supervision, what's provided around those students who are not taking the test is definitely an issue that, we will keep, the high school subcommittee will keep tabs on with the administration because, we think it's something worth continuing to look at. But they are working toward providing a meaningful experience for the non-test takers as much as they can with the staff that's available and the spacing. So again, that would be recommended to the school committee accept the report as a report of progress and with continued updates. The next item was based on the tardy report that we had received here, the whole body had received. We looked at it more closely in subcommittee. Mr. Leary talked about how the rate of student tardiness in terms of students being late for the advisory period had gone up slightly, where students being late for their first period of classes had actually decreased from 8.3% in 2004-05 to 3.5% in 2005-06. So given that we started the high school later and we have this advisory period that seems to have shown more tardiness, we really as a subcommittee are looking at what's happening in the advisory period that perhaps could be strengthened to make students find it more meaningful to show up for the advisory period. And the administration did talk about the value of the advisory program and that they see it as an essential strategy in meeting time on learning guidelines and other initiatives in terms of communication with students. But Mr. Samaras pointed out there are several obstacles that make the implementation difficult and that it's ongoing discussions with teachers union to help resolve those issues. We don't have a consistent, meaningful advisory period at this point, and that is seen as one of the reasons that students are not coming to school on time, and that's something that we're going to be focused on improving. Some other reasons for tardiness that we discussed had to do with the bus service the LRTA provides, that the scheduling, you're either very early for school, like 40 minutes early, or there isn't another bus until you're late, and the issue about the costs of transportation, that if we could look at something for our students who want free or reduced lunch, perhaps that, to give them a sliding scale, but it was brought to my attention that the fee of $20 a month for students, Lowell High School student, has not changed in years, and as we know, the gas costs are going up. We don't know how much we can do with the LRTA, but that was referred to the Transportation Subcommittee and to Mr. Dakota, our Transportation Coordinator, who will be exploring those issues with the LRTA and reporting back through the Transportation Subcommittee on if there's anything we can do about transportation to help our high school kids get to school on time, because it really is a multi-pronged approach. And one of the other pieces that came out about the tardy report had to do with the implementation of consequences for students who were tardy. And one of the things we noticed in the data that we got from the high school was some houses seemed to have a better rate of punctuality than other houses. And we have asked the house-masters to review and analyze what works in some houses that perhaps could be copied in other houses. And that piece about consequences, that the house-master said not all students will show up the day they're assigned attention. Eventually they get tracked down. They might go a couple of days after that, but clearly we want to have consistent standards of implementation for punctuality, and it's something that we're going to keep looking at. That again was recommended as the school committee accepted as a report in progress, and that we'll be updating you further on that. The other agenda item was on the quarterly course assessments. Dr. Jack reported the progress in the implementation of the program. She also gave us samples of exams, quarterly English tests that are being given out right now. There was some concern that some students were being tested on material that hadn't been covered under the instruction, that as we rush to implement these quarterly assessments, that perhaps the instruction is not quite on board with that. And both Mr. Samaras and Dr. Jack explained there had been a couple of isolated concerns regarding this issue with assessments, and they're being handled individually. They also pointed out it was the first year of common quarterly assessments for some departments, and so they're still working on adjusting this instruction to meet the expectations of the assessments. And Mr. Rourke at that point reviewed the value of continuing to provide these release days that we voted last year. We gave them a pilot year to provide this time for faculty to work together and develop and refine the quarterly assessments and the expectations for students. And Mr. Rourke made the point that they would need, and they would ask for another year to continue to refine that program. The motion by Ms. Fataconte, seconded by Mr. Leary. This one actually has an action on it, so maybe we should take this one separate. To recommend the school committee as a whole accept the report of progress and to recommend to the full committee the continuation of release days for the 2006-2007 academic school year. I don't know if we should...
Move approval,
Okay.
Your Honor.
I don't know if anybody wants to add any comments to this before we vote on it. I know there was some concerns.
Mr. Leary?
Just, I don't know if I take it out of order or not, but I had a quick question regarding the tardy report, and I don't know if this is the right time, but basically, the information we're looking at, and when I was saying we're improving with instruction time in terms of the tardy report, that was January information. Do we have data from April at this point in time, Madam Superintendent? Up through you, through the mayor.
Let me ask Mr. Rourke to...
The tardy report that we first gave you was the data from January, and then we had a subsequent report that Mr. McHugh wanted on February and March, and so that we provided to you as well. So you have as current as March, the end of March.
Just quickly, do you know if it's improving or if it's not improving?
Looking at the data, I think it would remain consistently the same.
Okay, the motion made by Ms. Doherty is to adopt the recommendation of the subcommittee that the school committee can continue the release days for 2006-2007 academic school year, seconded by Ms. Fataconte. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. We'll continue with the last item in the subcommittee report.
Thank you. Okay, the last item on the agenda was about the reading program. Due to the federal Title I cuts, we will be losing the instructional specialists that we currently have in the freshman academy. The current plan is to trade that position replace that, a retiring business department position, and keep the instructional specialist position, which will be funded through the local budget. During the subcommittee, when we talked about the high number of students entering the freshman academy who are not going to be reading at grade level, the freshman academy next year and ones even this year, and how we might begin to really focus services on those youngsters so they can get their reading skills up to speed. Dr. Baer told us about how we've been able to use the instructional specialist and this Read 180 program. It's a software program to really focus on improving the students' reading skills. The plan for next year would be to take this instructional specialist and have her work with the English teachers at the freshman academy to familiarize them with the Read 180 program, which we've seen some, I think, really impressive success with. They looked at, I guess it was 40 students, and were able to increase their reading level 2 grades by using this program with very specific focus and support from the instructional specialist. So the plan is that the instructional specialist will teach our teachers about this program, and then they can provide the kind of reading support, because typically reading specialists are more of a K-8 position, right? It's more the elementary grades that you have reading specialists. So to really provide our English teachers with this very specific skill set to help our students get up to speed on reading, that is the current plan, obviously given the budget, commitment that we'll be able to do it, but that's what they're looking at. The motion by Ms. Fataconte, second by Mr. Leary, to recommend the school committee as a whole accept the report as a report of progress. And that was really it.
Okay,
and
motion
I would welcome
to...
any comments.
Yes, Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Just a quick question, really. Looking at this 40% number of students coming into the academy reading at 2 or more grades below grade level, is that a consistent statistic over how long a period of time is that consistent? And I guess the question behind the question is, are improvements in MCAS scores for our 8th graders not showing themselves when these students are coming into their freshman years?
We don't have data going back too long on this. This is the results on a particular test, the SRI test, and it's not a test. It's a test on which there are no stakes attached when 8th graders take it, so that it's not entirely reliable over time. It may overstate the problem slightly. But that said, we don't have a good way to track 6 or 7 years of trend line data. So now that we are using a consistent measure, we should be able to track that over time, to track our improvement.
And I'm sorry, that consistent measure being the SRI test?
We have the SRI test, and we also now have more MCAS testing of reading at the middle school level. So there's more annual testing. Will you be able to use that data as well?
Mr. Leahy. Thank you. Through you to the chair of the high school department or subcommittee. I just gave you a promotion. I had a couple of concerns with this. I wasn't able to attend the subcommittee meeting, so I apologize. But when we voted on this for a report of progress, what is that? Are we going to actually get this in place next month, this month, over the summer? How's that going to work?
My understanding is they're going to look at 2 programs, the Read 180, which is not web-based, and this Voyager reading program, which is web-based, both of which the instructional specialist is familiar with. So my understanding is they're going to come back to us with a recommendation on one of those 2 programs. And of course, the funding is also necessary in terms of when we go to budget deliberations, that we allow this trade-off that we're going to do to keep this instructional specialist. So I think we'll be getting an update in terms of what they decide to do. And the plan is to implement this for the fall.
Okay. And through you to the superintendent then, I'm familiar a little bit with the Read 180 program. So if we keep that on the computer system, it only accommodates 60 students at a time. So we'd be looking at purchasing another program.
Now, we have several people at the high school are looking into this right now. We're looking at 2 different options, and we're looking to be able to provide support for 300 to 400 students.
Okay, so I mean, it's probably really not, we're not going to have the money to buy all the programs. And the other concern I had was the rooms. I'm not sure if we have the room for this program, right, to separate the kids. So how would that work? They're going to have to look at that, right?
Right. That's part of what they're looking at.
Okay. So this other Voyager program, are we using that now at the high school?
No.
No? Okay. I just don't, my concern is I don't want this to go, I know we all know this is how important this is, but I don't want this to go all summer and then we're just going to say, throw it together. I mean, it's very costly to go the first route. The second route I'm unfamiliar with, but I know that we know what the need is at the high school, so I'd like to see this prioritized, if that's okay with the committee.
I anticipate being able to have a report by no later than mid-June to bring to the Lowell High School Subcommittee.
Okay, and that'll include all the costs, obviously, and, okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Also, through you to the superintendent, isn't there a middle school that's using the Voyager program or no? I thought the Butler was using it.
One of our middle schools is piloting it, yes, but not at the high school. I thought the question was at the high school.
But we are familiar with it in terms of using it with our students. But I think if I hear my colleagues' concern, we need to move quickly so that we get this in place. Okay. It is definitely a priority, definitely.
Thank you. I have one question, if there's no objection for me asking it from here. Madam Superintendent, I was taken aback a little bit by Ms. Doherty's comment that we have some students that spend 30 days a year testing. Do we have a sense of what the average number of days is for our students?
I think the actual information was that there's 32 days of testing at the high school, in which the high school has to organize for testing, not an individual student participating in all 32 days of the testing. So, but it does mean
I misunderstood that.
I thought it
I'm
was
sorry.
as Ms. Doherty reported also, because when it was reported to us, it was as she is saying it. So
yeah.
it gave us the impression,
Yeah.
I thought the same thing, and I thought, well, state mandates, I'm not gonna, okay.
No, I think that,
So
thank you
the high
for
school
asking
is-
the question. It means that the high school, 1 out of 6 days that the high school is in
Someone's
session,
testing.
someone is being tested in
Okay.
cast tests.
Well, that's-
And so it
thank
means
you for
so that
clarifying that.
the organization of the school, the scheduling and all that is 1 out of 6 days. The school's focus has to be on test giving and creating an environment where the appropriate youngsters are being tested. We'll happily get you information at the different grade levels of the amount of time. I think we've provided a report in the past, but we'll break it down around how much testing individuals at different grade levels experience.
I'm not looking for a, make work project for somebody. I was just curious as to what that, okay. If the data exists, then fine. Okay. All right, motion to adopt the balance of the subcommittee report as a report of progress by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. The next item is the finance.
Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Leahy.
I did have one other question.
Okay.
Just on the parking. We did have a motion months ago about the parking in front of the high school. Do you know if that, where would that have gone from the school side to the, shouldn't that be in the motion?
I did make a note tonight to file that motion on the council side. The motion I remember, and maybe it's a different one, was to report back on the feasibility of closing a street.
Well, we had that also, but then I think we did ask about someone looking into in front of the high school on French Street, is it? So I just didn't know if, maybe it got lost somewhere, but I'm not sure.
It's not lost now, because I made a note,
Okay.
and it'll be on the council agenda at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that, Your Honor. One of the things we'd also talked about was parent needs to run in to get a child to go to a doctor's appointment or who's sick and pulls up in front of the high school the day and gets a ticket. The day after we had this meeting, I'm driving to work, and there is somebody parked in front, not in the area where you're not supposed to park, but parked to probably pick up a kid, and everybody's got a parking ticket on their car. And I can only imagine how frustrating that has to be when you come from the building and you've gone to either you're a parent volunteering and you've gone to drop something off or pick something up, or you're getting your sick kid and now all of a sudden there's a parking ticket on your car. So that is with the law department. And then it will go through to the council, Your Honor, and then we'll, hopefully you'll bring that information back to us. Thank you.
I will. Okay. Thank you. The next subcommittee report is a report of the Finance Subcommittee meeting on May 8th by Mr. McHugh. Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. The Finance Subcommittee had a meeting on May 8th. Present on the committee was John Leahy and Jim Leary and myself. Other committee members present was Mayor Martin, Jackie Doherty, Regina Faticani, and Connie Martin. School department personnel present was Dr. Bear and Mr. Lang. We reviewed quite a few items, but the most important item that we started off with was actually getting a third quarter fiscal report on our current FY06 budget. And some things that were no surprise to some of us were some of our utility accounts are actually going into a deficit and are going to require some transfers to bring those accounts back into line where they need to be to finish the year out. So we also found that our retirement account was going to go into a deficit, as well as the longevity account. So those, other than that, it seemed to be like we're in good shape. It'd just be a few accounts that we needed to make some adjustments. So as an outcome of that, we're going to bring a motion forward to approve the following transfers to take $420,000 from teacher salary accounts and move it to the electric account. We're going to also recommend that we move $85,000 from some salary accounts and $25,000 from a water account to fund the natural gas account. And the other one will be teacher salary accounts of $680,000 to go to the retirement account, and $25,650 from various salary accounts to the longevity account. Those 4 items shall bring the budget where we need to. So at this point, there was a motion at the meeting of 3-0. It passed to recommend the administration move forward with those transfers. So I'll bring that forward as
Motion to approve the transfers by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Miss Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante. 7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. The next item we discussed was actually doing some pre-purchasing of textbooks. As we all know, that's a big issue with the committee, and there's going to be a few available funds that we have left over this year, which will allow us to get the books in place by August, which is very important, because as we wait to July and get the textbook orders in, it just seems they show up September or October, and we really want them the first day of school. So this year, it was determined that we move forward with the Reading Street ELA curriculum textbooks and the Investigation Mathematics curriculum texts. So there was a motion made to allow the administration to use the available funds to purchase these 2 textbook adoptions, and that was approved 3-0. So I will bring that motion forward as well.
Okay, motion to adopt the recommendation of the subcommittee to authorize the purchase of textbooks as described by Mr. McHugh. So moved by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Miss Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. The next item we discussed was the school purpose account, and in one of the recent city council meetings, there was some discussion about the school purpose account, and we reviewed a memo that Mr. Lang was going to be sending through the superintendent to the mayor to bring back to the city council. So that's just an item that will be moving forward, just to give them an in-depth explanation on what is this account and what it's used for. We also reviewed the net school spending and the maintenance of buildings, and there are ongoing discussions with the Mr. Lang, with Mr. Kennedy on bringing those numbers and getting them ready for us, as we will be getting ready again at the end of the summer to do the end of the year report that the state requires us, and they have to work together on bringing those other expenses that the city incurs back to us, so we can look at those and approve those as well. The 5th item we discussed was the modular classroom recommendation, and I know a number of people years ago, as the bubble was coming up through the system, through the elementary and up through the middle school, and has been moving through, we a number of years ago went out and purchased, or actually leased, a number of modular classrooms on a temporary basis. Now that the bubble's kind of moved up towards the high school, we're seeing some relief where we don't quite need as many of them. You know, the last couple of years we've actually sent some back and not renewed the lease, or in some minor cases actually made a purchase, just for the fact it's nice to have a little bit of extra space, and there's still a crowding issue at that building. So we reviewed the current lease that we're under, and as part of that, there's a recommendation to actually send one of them back at the close of this year, and that was a motion made by Mr. Leary and seconded by Mr. Leary to remove the Riley Elementary School modular classroom and actually purchase the the modular classroom at the Washington School. And the important fact is by sending them back, it will not be a cost on our budget next year, and some of it will be offset by the actual cost to buy out the one at the Washington. So it's really, it's a very cost-effective way of looking at maintaining some space, because we foresee some need at the Washington over the future, but the Riley does not necessarily need it, so there'll be a savings there in next year's budget as well. So that's the motion we bring forward at this time too.
Okay, motion to adopt the recommendation of the subcommittee to not renew the lease on the Riley classroom and to purchase the Washington School modular classrooms by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
With great hesitation, yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes the report of the Finance Subcommittee.
Motion to adopt the balance of the report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. And the final subcommittee report is a report of the joint meeting of the subcommittees on personnel, special ed, and finance. I don't know who's going to give this report. Mr. Leahy.
Mr. Larry, yes. Leahy. Excuse me. I'm just joking. You got it right.
I got it right.
You got it right. The joint meeting of the subcommittees on personnel, special education, and finance met. Present was everybody. We were all there to discuss this. Also, Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Gene Franco, and Special Education Director Deb Westerway. The first item on the agenda that we discussed was the purpose of special education reorganization. Superintendent reviewed with the committee plans to put in place to reorganize and expand special education department for staffing. The first, we had a lively discussion. Everybody had a lot of concerns with this. The first part that we discussed was the implementation recommendations from the 202 report by of the special education by the DLI consultants. These recommendations are presented to fix problems with compliance and quality that have been identified recently with special ed coordinating review teams. The Director of Special Ed, Deb Westerway, reviewed many of the diverse problems that the reorganization and expansion is being designed to solve. One part of the discussion recommended that the committee members that weren't present in 202 get a report of the DLI report. So we're going to provide that to the new members, and we're going to continue the discussion at a later date. The second part of the discussion was about school-based educational team chairs and the psychologist teams. Superintendent, along with Deb Westerway, described the rationale for adding 2 additional team chairs and psychologists to the staff for next year so that the department can establish school-based teams. We talked at length about having school-based teams versus central office-based teams. And obviously, we'd like to improve the coordination of services between the elementary, middle, and high school levels. We want to make sure that we're meeting our mandated timelines, and we also want to make sure that we improve each school's capacity to anticipate and prevent problems. The third part of the discussion was about the clerical staff reorganization. Ms. Westerway presented plans to reorganize her clerical staff. Many of us had a lot of concerns, and we're going to take this under advisement and schedule another meeting to discuss her rationale for for the reorganization. So we did speak at length on all these issues. We all had our own concerns, and we weren't able to really come up with any definite decisions. So we're going to we took a vote to have this as a report of progress and schedule another meeting in the future. So that was accepted 5-0. The second part of the agenda was to review the district student service office. This was a motion presented to us by Mr. Leary, and the motion read, request that the subcommittees on personnel, finance, special education meet with the superintendent to conduct a complete review of the student services department at central office in order to develop and recommendations that achieves maximum efficiency, effectiveness, and if possible, cost savings. In addition, to review the open position of assistant superintendent on student services before action is taken to fill it. It was a long motion. We talked at great length on this, and I would like to ask that Mr. Leary speak on this. It was his motion. We did have, we probably spoke for about probably about 45 minutes on it. Everybody had their say, the pros and the cons of this position, and we did have a motion by Ms. Faticani, seconded by Ms. Martin, that subcommittees vote to accept this as a report of progress. So that was accepted 5-0. But I would like to ask, I think Mr. Leary had something to add, so I'd like to ask him to speak.
Mr. Leary?
Thank you. I'm going to try to be brief, and I think, one, I want to appreciate the committee sitting in a subcommittee meeting late on a Monday night, going through this particular department. And I think one of the things, when I was running for school committee, one of the biggest promises I made is I would look for prioritizing the finances in every way we can. So when an open position does become available, we need to look at how we're running the operation. And I appreciate the discussion. I think, almost the word interrogation of the superintendent and assistant superintendent of student services, Gene Franco, and I feel bad for the director of special ed. I did basically ask, really, how are you running your operation? But really defend why you need this position. I think being here 4 months and making a decision as eliminating one of your 4 top managers, I look at your position as not a manager. I look at your position, Madam Superintendent, as a leader. And if you don't have the, I guess, using any type of phrase, if you don't have the right management team in place to be successful, you're not going to be successful. And as part of the committee, our job is to ensure you're doing your job successfully. And if you're not, then we need to hold you accountable. And if you're telling us, I think, to really epitome what you were saying in that meeting, you're saying, I need this position or I'm not going to be successful. I always take that with a side smile and say, well, yeah, sure. But I appreciate the thoughtful review. I appreciate that we're having about close to $2 million in cuts in Title I funding, which, granted, a lot of those cuts, a lot of that funding comes under the curriculum area, but the impact is dealt directly with student services. And to cut $90,000 to try to replace $1.9 million is, penny wise, very pound foolish. I'm going to support the individual that we were talking about, which comes up later in in our agenda tonight, to fill that position. I am going to be wanting to take a closer look as I become more involved with how we're running our operation. I know that we're having 2 positions that won't be filled. That's probably areas we're going to take the money and spend it in different, it's not going to be a real cost savings, but it's going to be spent in an area that's more efficient. My gut reaction is let's take a risk, a calculated business risk. But at the end of the day, when you've been here 4 months and you're being decimated by federal cuts, which are not on our big budget list right here, to change that type position that is an effective manager so you can lead the school department, I'm going to support filling that position at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else on this matter? Okay, motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Leahy, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next on the agenda are reports of the superintendent The first one
we didn't have
being
that.
about the FY07 budget recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you. Committee members have received tonight a binder with the recommended budget for fiscal year '07. I want to, before I describe it a little bit, I just want to make special thanks to my central office team who really worked very hard to sort through a lot of difficult priorities, and to the principals who did the same thing at their school level and made some very tough choices represented in this budget. And then special thanks to Assistant Superintendent Lang, who has put together, I think, an exceptionally clear document, and committee members who've been here through several budgets can recognize that this one is the clearest yet. And it's very, very well tied. Each section of it is very well tied to the other. So if I could just point out briefly, in the first section of the budget is the 7-page narrative, and I'll identify a couple of highlights from that try to give an overview of the approach in the budget and some of the key parts of it. The next section lists all of the recommended changes that are included in the budget. So the first part of them are what we've called the trade-off staffing adjustments that have no new cost associated with them, but they're trading one position for another position because the one we're keeping or we've deemed more important than something that we're willing to give up. These are tough choices, and again, I applaud the hard work of principals and others in trying to come up with the best choices for kids. Then after the trade-off staffing adjustments, which is a full 6 pages. The 7th page in that section identifies essential needs related to special education. And I mentioned in my preview that the coordinated review has made it clear that we've really fallen behind in our special education staffing and services. We've made cuts over the last several years, and they frankly have caught up with us. And the escalating need for special education services and our stripped down staffing just can't meet those needs and meet our legal obligations. So I've identified here the minimum that our staff sees as necessary to get us so that we can consistently be in compliance with the special education law. At the same time, we're not going just for compliance, but we're going for a better delivery of services and a more coordinated services, so that you can see that as page 7 in the second page. It's page 7 identified as essential needs budget adjustments. The next couple of pages in that section, pages 8, 9, 10, and 11, are what we've described as critical needs. These aren't reflected in the follow-up budget book, but they represent the critical needs that my staff and I have identified for restorations of services that we've lost over the last several years that are really, really critical. Services that are very critical for youngsters that we've been able to fund through grants that are now no longer able to be funded with grants. We're losing nearly $2 million worth of grants, 1.3 million of them in entitlement grants that we've been able to count on year after year. So some of the most critical of those are identified here, recommending that we pick them up in the local budget. So that's another 4 pages of recommendations for critical needs. The next tab in the next section of the budget book is the document that we typically go through in the budget deliberations, and that reflects all of the recommendations for trade-offs, substitutions, and essential needs, but in it is not included the critical needs, because the committee, I'm sure, wants to go through those very carefully, and I didn't want to presume any of those in the budget. The next section is the detail about the elementary schools, and then detail about the middle schools, detail about Lowell High School. Typically, the committee uses those for references, but does not look specifically at those pages in terms of voting and adding or deleting. The alternative schools are in their own separate section, and the very back of the book is the staff salary book, by department within the school department, listing every employee. So that's the staff salary book. And this year, if you leaf through it, you'll see that some lines in it are highlighted in yellow. Those are the substitutions or trade-offs or essential needs that then appear in the part of the budget that you'll be going through page by page. So it's, I think, a helpful reference for you that you haven't had before. So I want to, again, thank Mr. Lang for that. If I could just make a few comments about the budget, and there may well be some questions this evening that will prepare us for the first real deliberations that will happen next Monday evening. The budget for this year is $128.7 million. When we look at all of what I'm describing as the budget busters, as well as the trade-offs and the most essential needs, we will need an increase of 2.6%, or $3.3 million, to meet the absolute most essential needs. Then, in addition to that, I'm asking the committee to look at another $2+ million worth of critical needs to address unmet needs that we have. The revenue context at this moment is not settled. The governor's budget called for $3.1 million more for the city of Lowell in Chapter 70. The Senate budget calls for $3.4 million more, but the House budget has called for only $800,000 in additional aid. That's got to go to conference committee and get settled. We, of course, are hopeful that the Senate number will prevail for Lowell. The city manager has indicated that any new Chapter 70 funds that come into Lowell he will make sure the school department receives. On page 1 of the highlights, I identified the grant losses that we expect to face. The biggest, of course, is the $1 million shortage we're facing in Title I, but you can see that we have cuts of as much as 50% in the technology budget, grant budget that we've gotten from the federal government. So a total of more than $1.3 million in entitlement grants, another $600,000 in grants that we have, competitive grants that we have gotten that we'll now be losing. The budget does include our contractual obligations in terms of sick leave buyback and so on, but it does not include, at this point, money for collective bargaining increases. On page 2 of the highlights, the challenge before all of us is really quite evident in what I've called the budget busters. Health insurance, assuming a 5% increase in health insurance premiums, we're looking at having to increase that budget by $930,000 alone, just for health insurance. We have to increase our budget for electricity and natural gas by $530,000. Sick leave buyback, because of the unprecedented number of retirees who are departing at the close of the school year, we anticipate having to add $450,000 to that budget. And special education transportation is up by nearly $200,000. Fortunately, the work that the Transportation Subcommittee and John Dakota did to find efficiencies in the regular education transportation account have been very helpful, but they only do a little bit more than offset the increases in special education transportation. The budget, as I indicated, has a lot of difficult choices, a lot of trade-offs. For example, after 5 years, the pilot program in Spanish language at the Robinson Middle School will be phased out and replaced with more learning time for students in reading, writing, and mathematics. As Mr. Leary mentioned, 2 soon-to-be vacant central office positions, the coordinator for early childhood education and the district support specialist for Title I, will not be filled next year, so that we can divert those funds to direct services in schools. I want to mention a couple of the efficiencies that we've built in here because I know Mr. McHugh was very helpful in that discussion. We're going to incur a one-time cost of about $80,000 to remove 4 modular classrooms at the Riley and purchase the 2 at the Washington. That will result over time in an annual savings of well over $55,000. So it's spending some money now in order to save larger money over the years to come. We're essentially level funding each school's allocation for expenses. The allocation is way below what it was in fiscal year '02. We're down to $115 per student for all school expenses, all books, all texts. We're down to all the postage, paper, everything it takes to operate a school. We're down to $115 per student. We've got in here a number of trade-offs. So, for example, as was mentioned earlier, we'll eliminate a vacant business teaching position at the high school in order to retain the instructional specialist for reading position that Mr. Leahy mentioned. We're looking at eliminating 1 vacant paraprofessional position at the McAuliffe Elementary School to retain the full-time parent liaison position there that can no longer be funded through Title I. That's the kind of difficult choices that principals are making in this. No one wants to lose the paraprofessional position. No one wants to lose the parent liaison position. And so at that school, looking most closely at the most critical need, the choice is parent liaison. Similarly, and this will be further discussion with a special ed subcommittee, but eliminating the soon-to-be vacant high school educational team chairperson position and replacing it with an academic chair for special education at the high school so that we can restore a more reasonable program support and evaluation of and supervision of staff. Another difficult trade-off that I'm recommending in this budget is eliminating the second assistant principal position at the Daly Middle School in order that we can fund the second assistant principal position we need at the Robinson because we need the position at the Robinson more. It's not that we don't need the position at the Daly, but we need the one at the Robinson more. So those are the kinds of trade-offs that you'll see throughout this budget listed throughout. And then the essential needs related to special education are two things: to ensure that we're in compliance and also to prevent additional costs that would be even higher for out-of-district placements and transportation. So, for example, the continued increase in the number of young children arriving at school with pervasive developmental delay means that we need to offer another classroom. We've identified a location at the Pawtucket Memorial School where we can offer it, but we need to staff it, and there simply are no longer grant funds that we can look to fund those programs. And then under other critical needs, the last several pages of the highlights, you'll see a range of needs, from restoring the science department chair position at the high school to maintaining the funds for the band camp, which we've been able to tap a grant for. The grant's disappeared. We don't have the money for it. It's a small expenditure, but it means a lot to the band program at the high school. So there are services at the high school, services at the middle school, and at the elementary school, and which I hope the committee will give serious consideration to. So I look forward to the deliberations ahead and welcome committee questions either this evening or between now and Monday, and we'll put together as much information as we can for Monday for your deliberations.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes, if I could just ask for 2 items. I think if it's at all possible, I know earlier tonight we had a report regarding the ETC information, and I know that that's part of this proposal. If there's any way we can get some of that information for Monday, that would be really helpful. And the other item is traditionally, I know we've gotten it every time with the budget, is the enrollments with the teaching load by school. We've had like a nice spreadsheet that broke down the number of teachers by grade level with the actually class size enrollments. Just gives us a picture of, where the students are and where the teachers are in that sense. That would be really helpful as well. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I just have one quick comment, and obviously we haven't looked through this big budget yet, but I did have one concern I'll speak to you afterwards. And I know we have to make priorities with federal funds that we've lost. But can you just quickly tell me, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I noticed there's a fluctuation in the paras. Some schools could have 5, some could have 12. How does that, why is there such a fluctuation in the schools? What am I going to be looking for?
The major reason for fluctuation for across elementary schools, for example, the major difference is whether the school has substantially separate special education, citywide special education programs. So a school that has a citywide program, the Riley has a school for youngsters with severe special needs. There are a large number of paraprofessionals assigned to that program. They appear in that school's budget. So that you'd see 4 paraprofessionals at the Riley just for that program that don't need to be at the Merkland, for example, which doesn't have that program. So the first big difference is which schools have citywide special education programs. Then the next reason, the next reason will be the trade-off issues. Exactly the issue of what from a principal's perspective, with discussion with us, what makes the most sense in that school for the needs in that school.
Okay. And I noticed, like, the social workers, are they all on grant or federal funds? They're not, they wouldn't be in this book, right? I didn't notice any.
There are social workers who are in this work directly out of the special education department, who work specifically related to special education. They are funded, most of them in the local budget. Then the other social workers have been funded traditionally by Title I. Now, with Title I reductions, you will see in the budget some trade-offs, so that, for example, at the, I have to remember which school, one of the schools, maintaining the social worker position is more important at that school in order to maintain the climate and all the work that's been done than another position. And it may be part of a paraprofessional position may go from that school in order to help fund the social worker position. And again, principals have looked wherever they can to also where there are vacancies. I mean, we want to be very sensitive to people in this, so we're trying to minimize the number of layoffs of people. But so first, they're looking at where there are vacancies, but in some cases where there are vacancies, those positions have to be filled, so they have to look elsewhere if there's a position that's absolutely critical to hold on to. So that you will see for one of the first times regular education social work positions in the regular budget as trade-offs.
Okay, thank you.
Does that respond to your question, Mr.
Sure,
Leahy?
yeah.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you to the superintendent. I notice under your critical needs budget adjustments that you have restored the equivalent of 1 additional teaching position at each of the middle schools and each of the elementary schools. Will we be getting any information about what that...
Absolutely.
You know, how those... I mean, I don't know if each school is going to have their own plan of how they would use that position, but I think it would be important for the committee to have a sense of, you know,
Absolutely.
what that position would entail for our students.
You will have on Monday, you will have, for your Monday deliberations, you will have that detail along with the rationale for each school, and you'll also have the rationale for the trade-offs. I know Mr. McHugh asked in particular that we make sure that you have the written rationale for for the trade-offs at the building level, and you will have that for Monday evening.
Mr. Leary?
Mr. Mayor, through the superintendent, I think to Mr. Lang, the budget increases for health insurance this year is like almost $1 million. And I think if, from our discussions in some subcommittees and finance subcommittee, we know that $300,000 of that $930,294 is actually monies we spent this year. So I guess, so in essence, the budget we have for next year is around $600,000. That may actually be underfunded. Is that a correct statement? I mean, we could end up paying extra money in next year's budget. It looks like it says 8.5% is what we're paying really for. We're budgeting 1 year at 6%, 600,000. We're actually paying over 300,000 for this year's actual expenses with health insurance. Is that correct?
Yes, the way that the budget with the health insurance goes,
We budget a figure based on the projected increases for the rates. But the city, where it's self-insured, actually pays out actual claims over the course of the year. So our budgeted figure last year, we were advised by the city to budget 2.5% increase over our actual claims from the year before. That's what we budgeted, and that's what we actually contributed to the health fund or whatever the fund is that goes to pay the claims. The actual expenditures for this year to that fund for school department purposes ended up being about $300,000 more than we had budgeted. So when we go at this point to make next year's budgeted figure, we started our current projection instead of starting 300,000 in the hole. So we add the 300,000 to that. And right now, the city insurance people are looking at a 5% increase next year is what we're being told to budget right now. So we start with the 300,000 plus 5% on top of that is where you get up to about your $1 million. So if you actually looked at our actuals for this year, it would be only be about $600,000 to $700,000 as opposed to the $1 million. But we always start a new year fresh and then carry that in. Now, whatever our actuals come out to next year, we would never pay anything more than we actually budgeted.
Absolutely, thank you. And I just wanted to reiterate, like, the average cost for healthcare in the state of Massachusetts is almost 10%. So you can anticipate, or one could guesstimate, that we may be in the similar situation the following budget year. Due no fault to our own. I mean, it is what it is. I just want to make sure everybody's cognizant that healthcare costs they're huge.
Mr. Leary, Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. Just one quick question to you, Your Honor. With the recent events, with the flooding and everything, the difficulties we've had in the city, does that tie up any money, or, while we're preparing our budget and your budget, does that have any effect on any of this?
It potentially is going to have a dramatic effect. I mean, there are extensive overtime costs that have been incurred for public safety personnel, DPW personnel, and that's just scratching the surface. We're hopeful that some of that cost will be reimbursable by the federal or the state government, but we don't know that for certain at the present time, nor do we know what the damage is to infrastructure at this point. As part of the challenge of this, we've been requested by FEMA to provide not an estimate, but our actual losses to FEMA by Friday, this week. And we have, the Merrimack River still raging down. We have, no opportunity to inspect the sewer system, for example, the interceptor that runs parallel to the river. So it's a very daunting task. We are hopeful that we'll have some of that, or a good chunk of that cost reimbursed, but, we have to pay it now. Employees work today, they get paid next week, and we might have reimbursement or not, 3, 4, 5 months down the road. So it's this was a very challenging budget year before the weather events of this week, and as a result of this, it's really going to be a substantial impact, I think, on the city budget.
Right. But you'll obviously keep us informed on anything we need to do with our budget that may concern that. If you can, I mean, if anything's possible to have, but.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Just a quick request. I know the superintendent has mentioned that we'll be receiving the narrative on Monday. Just to say, it would be, that's going to be our first budget hearing. If we're going to be able to really get into this in a substantive way, to have that information before we sit down would be hugely helpful. So anything we could do to get it to us on Friday, I'm sure the committee would appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. Motion to accept the report of the superintendent as a report of progress. So moved by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Fattacante. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Second report from the superintendent is on signage. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Leahy had asked that we find a way to replace the signage on Varnum Avenue showing direction to the Pawtucket Memorial Elementary School and the Wang Middle School. And I just wanted to report that Brian Curley, our Director of Operations and Maintenance, has been in contact with the police department, and within the next several weeks, we expect a sign will be installed at the corner of Varnum Avenue and West Meadow Road.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Leahy.
Sure, I just wanted to say thank you, and could you let Mr. Mullen know that the sign is going up? Thank you.
Okay, motion to accept the report as a report of progress. All those in favor say...
Aye.
Motion by
Motion to
Ms.
accept, Your Honor.
Fattacante, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is approved. Under new business, Madam Superintendent.
Yes. Once the committee, the subcommittees that met determined that the position of Assistant Superintendent for Student Services could be filled, I have proceeded and want to recommend to the committee that Ann Murphy be named Acting Assistant Superintendent for Student Services for the 2006-2000 school year. Committee members know Ann as the Assistant Administrator for Special Education. She's an experienced and respected administrator here in Lowell. She works currently primarily with our middle schools, but prior to her current assignment, she served as the department's Management Information Specialist, out-of-district coordinator, and briefly even as high school coordinator. So she knows staff and programs from preschool to out-of-school placements in the system. Ann's a graduate of Fitchburg State, began her career next door at the Bay State Rehab Center, began her teaching career here in Lowell in 1979. She's earned her master's in education administration from UMass Lowell and her certificate advanced graduate study from Fitchburg. I'm hoping the committee will accept this recommendation because I think Ann has a deep commitment to quality education for all children. Her extensive knowledge of our schools and our staff, combined with her record of strong leadership, and what I think of when I think of Ann is she's got this practical can-do attitude, and I think that's the spirit that the committee has come to rely on with Jean Franco in that office, and I'm confident that the committee will be pleased to see the same practical can-do advocacy for children under Ann's leadership for next year. So I enthusiastically recommend Ann Murphy as Acting Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, effective this summer.
Move approval, Your Honor.
Motion approved by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes?
7 yeas, approved.
Madam Superintendent.
I want to thank the committee and thank you also for the support of allowing me to fill the position. I'll invite Ann Murphy to the next school committee meeting so she can be formally introduced in her new role.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 convention conference requests. Any objection to taking them all together? Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask if we could, if my colleagues don't object, maybe we could pull out number 2 and get a little more information on this, unless...
I think the reason being, Your Honor, I'm used to seeing money coming from grants and other resources, and this one happens to come directly from our budget. And not that $2,000 is a lot of money, just is there another option of where we can derive the funding?
Okay, so is that a
Yeah,
motion to
that's
delay
the issue,
action?
just where are we going to drive, right?
Okay. Madam
I
Superintendent.
wonder if I could ask the committee if you could approve contingent on identifying a grant source to pay for it. Are you
Well,
if
concerned
I
about
can
the
find
cost, yeah. Well,
so
the
if
cost
I
of it, too. It just
if
seems
we
awfully
can
high.
find, I guess the question I'm asking is if there's a way that we can identify a grant that this would be a legitimate expense for. This is to build the knowledge of advisor-advisee programs, and this is a very highly recommended conference. So these are 2 guidance counselors who are key in developing that program, and it enables them to learn some of the latest thinking about high school advisory programs. I think there may be a grant source, some remaining funds in a grant from fiscal year '06 that we might be able to use. So if we could do that, would that be all right with the committee?
Okay with that?
Sure.
Great. So if you could approve that contingent on it being grant funded, that would help me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so is that, then a motion to approve all
Funding-
three?
Pending the grant funding. yes.
All three, but number 2 contingent upon
grant funding, yes.
receiving grant funds to pay for that. So moved by Mr. Leahy, seconded by Ms. Fattacante. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
I can,
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, Ms. Doherty?
Yes, I had a question for you, Your Honor. I had heard that there was some movement on the council last night about the temporary one-way streets over by the Bailey Daily Schools, and could you update the committee on that? Is that true? I mean, I'm not sure if my information is accurate, but was there a motion that was accepted that would impact the, remember we had talked
Yes,
about...
I believe the action that was approved last night was a temporary measure, experimental, for no parking during certain hours, and I believe that was the only thing that was adopted last night.
Okay, so not the one-way street?
No one-way streets,
And
no. it was-
when would that come into effect? The
Usually it's within a matter of days after the
Okay.
approval, so I would say certainly by the first of the week.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leahy?
thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to mention one thing that when the schools were closed down, I think the committee we're grateful that the staff that were in the schools, feeding people, coming in, and especially some of the nurses were there on round-the-clock shifts all night long. So on behalf of the committee, I think we should thank everybody in the school department that was involved, and I know everybody on the city did a great job too. So it was quite an event, and we all had to pull together.
Yes, so noted. And Madam Superintendent?
Yes, just to follow up on that, I wanted to, the city emergency plan was just terrific in handling this, and I want to make special praise for, first, in our department, John Dakota, who really developed a very creative way to plan for managing the buses so that we could open school today. And on the city side, I want to make special note of Dave Blazon, who really worked very closely with John about specific intersections that needed to be opened in order for us to get the routes going, and also TJ McCarthy, who was really just so solid and helpful and kept our staff informed all along the way. It was really an impressive effort on the city's part.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I did speak at length last night, thanking various city departments. I did not mention anybody in the school department. However, I did have an opportunity to tour the shelter that was set up at Lowell High School with Mr. Samaras, who was most cooperative. The Lieutenant Governor and Governor both toured that site with myself and Congressman Meehan. And so certainly the school department held up its end in this, and the staff at the high school, as well as in other locations, certainly did themselves and the city proud, and I'm grateful for their efforts as well. Okay. Madam Superintendent.
Just one other announcement. I left on the committee's tables this evening on June 6th at 9 a.m. At the Bailey School. Will be an event that you are all cordially invited to, as is the public, the unveiling of the portrait of Dr. Gertrude M. Bailey, after whom the school is named, and who will be present, and it will be a special morning for those of you who can attend.
Thank you. Mr. Leary.
Just a quick question, Mayor, and I might have missed what Committeewoman Doherty was saying. Regarding the Bailey and Daly School and the traffic issue, what street is now having the no parking area? Is that the Campbell Drive, or is that, I guess I was...
I'm sorry. It was
okay.
Several streets. Campbell Drive is one of them.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The meeting stands adjourned.
You gotta press it to get the meeting out. Right, there it is, it's there.